I'm sorry, I'm cheating and I'm making a new video, so here's the old video. Good afternoon, evening, night, whatever time of the day it is for you. This is Mr. Pike here. Hi, how are you? Wave your hand. That's cool. Alright, today, well, in pre-cal, I'm going to be creating all the videos, so you guys will get used to my voice. I'm sorry that I'm kind of weird and I talk about monkeys sometimes and I just talk about whatever, so hopefully you at least get some smiles out of it. If you guys ever have any questions, I will be in C101 as long as I am here and before they fire me, so when they fire me I probably won't be in C101 anymore, obviously. Anyways, today we are going to be talking about Chapter 1, Section 1 in the McGraw-Hill Pre-Calculus textbook. It looks a little bit something like that crazy funky symbol on it. Yay, pre-calculus. I don't know why I had to sound like Frankenstein or something, or not Frankenstein, the beast. Frankenstein's the doctor. Come on, crazy kids. Okay, but today we are talking about functions, anything to do with functions. So one thing that we need to talk about is, what is a function? What is this thing called a function? I don't know. Pretty much all we were talking about is that there is a unique x value, unique, UNIQUE x value for any y value.
Things like that, you can pick
value,
those up.
Apparently. Value. Value. Like I said, I'm sorry, I'm weird. They gave it to me because they thought I was funny or something. I don't know. They have to make fun of me. So pretty much all that is talking about is if you have a graph, let's draw a graph. Say we have a parabola. Pretty much for any x value that I can pick, I only have one y value that matches that x value. So say I have the x value is 4. I have the y value, say 1, 2, 3, 4 for that. Something like that, okay? Also, we have something that we call a vertical line test. If you run a vertical line anywhere on your graph, now this graph's getting crazy, it only hits one point at any given time. Cool, so that is what a function is. Yay! Right. Next thing we're going to talk about is interval notation. And don't forget, guys, I know I talk fast in these things. I try to talk fast so that you can go back and you can rewind them, and it doesn't take too long. If you understand it, you can just keep going. If you don't understand it, go back, rewind it, just like I just said. I don't know why I'm repeating myself. I'm crazy. Not used to this yet. I'm opening all my pens. Now I have a ton of pens. Yay, a ton of pens! Okay, so with this, interval notation, all this means is, say we're talking about our domain. So I'm talking about the domain in this situation. You can use it for different things. It depends on what the question is asking you about. Don't forget the domain is all the x values included in your function. So like here, I can see that it goes from 8 to negative infinity in that direction, and then it goes from 10 to infinity. But don't forget, if it's an open dot, that means that 10 is not included. So all this means is from negative infinity to 8, so everything from negative infinity all the way up till I get to 8, and then this little u right there, that means union, which pretty much in math just means and, from 10 to infinity. Now notice, there's a bracket on the 8, so maybe you figured it out already. The bracket means this is inclusive, it's in I-N-C-L-U-S-I-V-E, and the parentheses means excluded. So notice, with the inclusive one, we have a closed circle. With the excluded one, we have an open circle because we are not actually at that point. It is just up to that point and infinitely close to it. Make sure you have the union if you have a break. Notice on the infinities, they're always going to be parentheses because there's not one definite stopping point, so we do not know what actually number we're going to. You could have infinitely many infinities, and it just keeps getting higher because there's no stopping infinity, right? It's just more and more and more and more and more until we go crazy and we draw a monkey to signify that we are happy. See, now that's weird. My students have never seen a monkey with a face on it. I shouldn't do that. That's not a real monkey. I apologize for the fake monkey. Let's get started talking about our first example. Yay! First example of pre-calc. And then last example, we'll celebrate having the last example. But until then, there's no more celebrations. I'm just kidding. You can celebrate if you want to. It's my party and I'll grab the wine too. Right? Yeah, you guys understand. Okay, so it says write an interval notation. So that just means I'm going to write it kind of like we saw in our last example with the fake monkey. Rah, fake monkey. Okay, so this says x is less than negative 13. So I have all of the x values that are less than negative 13. So I have all of the x values from negative infinity all the way up to negative 13. And notice, since there is not one of those less than or equal to negative 13, I make sure to put a parentheses with the negative 13. Yay! Alright, we're going to hit a couple of these real quick. So this one, again, interval notation. X is greater than or equal to 12. So I have a bracket. It is everything bigger than 12. So from 12 to infinity and beyond. This one I have the x is greater than or equal to 12 and less than 27. So it is everything between 12 and 27. Notice here I have greater than or equal to that 12. So I will go again from 12, where the 12 is inclusive, to 27, and there she blows. This one's going to be a little bit weird. Not because people are walking in the hall and you can hear them and they're talking about bananas and why they don't think that they are good for you, but because we can't really write this in interval notation. So just, it's a little bit strange. Because all multiples of 3 would be like 3, 6, 9, 12, right, to infinity, and then the other direction as well. So there's no real defining start or stop, and it's only the numbers in between. So we're missing a lot of numbers. We don't have everything inclusive in there. But what we can say is we can say that all multiples of 3 would represent something like 3n, as long as n is a whole number, right? So the way we write that is n is an element of the integers. So 3 times n, right, because it's multiples of 3, so we're multiplying some number n, where we want n to be a whole number, like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, or negative 1, negative 2, negative 3, right? So we have to make the stipulation that n has to be an element of, that's what that sign right there means, is an element of, right, the integers. This just means integers. Remember, that just kind of means whole numbers. Just in case you forgot what an integer was, I know you all remember though, right? Right, yeah. In these examples, except for D, I made that up. Meh, whatever, you'll deal with it. We are trying to determine whether something is a function. So that's going back to the vertical line test that we were talking about. So with part A, what I went ahead and did is I went ahead and graphed this in your graphing calculator for you. So that's just punching in the equation y equals 2 over x. Look at the graph. If you run a horizontal line anywhere on the graph, it only passes one point at any given time. So yes, that is a function. For part B, we want to get the y by itself in order to graph this. So what we can do is subtract 2 from both sides. We'll have So we will have the equation y equals x squared minus 2. And again, I went ahead and graphed that for you. So there's our picture of that. Again, we have a horizontal or vertical line test that passes on everything there. There's your function. There's your graph. We are good to go on that one. So that one is also yes. And then this last one, you will need to move over the 18, so subtract the 18, so you have 4y squared equals 96x minus 18, divide by 4, so you have y squared equals 24x minus 4.5, yeah, okay, and then square root, so we will have y equals plus or minus the square root of 24x minus 4.5. And I forgot to do the negative side on that. So real quick, I will graph negative. Sorry. Entertain yourself somehow. Eat a banana. I don't know. Yell at monkeys. Do anything cool. So this one will actually fail the vertical line test. I keep saying horizontal. The vertical line test every single point, except for the ones over here, obviously. But here, you can see if you run a vertical line throughout your graph, it hits more than 1 point most of the time. So this one will be a big, no way, Jose, no way, not possible. Kidoki, but don't write no way, just write no, obviously, right? If you write no bananas, it's cool too in my class, but don't do that in another teacher. They will kill you and me. Alright, next part in your homework that you are going to see should be asking you for function values. So find f of -2 for this function. So pretty much all you're going to be doing is just substituting a -2 wherever you see x, because you will have f of -2 equals 2 times -2 squared plus 17. -2 squared, I'm pretty sure, is 4, so you will have 2 times 4 plus 17. 2 times 4, I think, is 8 plus 17. So you should have f of -2 equals 25. Happy day! That's pretty much all you're going to be doing for those. Just simplify them as far as you possibly can. In this example, we are talking about the domain of this function. Note that this is a square root, and we do not want anything beside the square root to be a 0 or less, well, really less than 0, because then we'll have imaginary numbers. So what I can say is 6 minus x squared has to be greater than or equal to 0, and then just solve this like a regular equation. Or really inequality. Hello, skis. So 6 is greater than or equal to x squared in square root and square root. So x is less than or equal to plus or minus the square root of 6. But really, when you think about that, it needs to be between negative square root 6 and square root 6. So what that tells us about our domain is that it must go from, oh, I'm sorry, that should be a bracket, negative square root 6 to square root 6. If you look at a picture, it will look something like this. So hopefully that totally makes sense. This particular function is called a piecewise function. Pretty much we have two pieces. We have 2x minus 6 as long as x is less than 2. And we have 5x squared plus 3 if x is greater than or equal to 2. So in this instance, I'm trying to find f of 2. So I'm trying to find what my value is, my function value is, right at 2. So I can say f of 2, and right at 2 I will be using this part of the function here. So I can say 5 times 2 squared plus 3. So I have 5 times 4 plus 3. So I have 20 plus 3. So hopefully f of 2 should be 23. You guys really pay attention on this one. This one's super important. Usually, yeah, that's all I'll say. Super important. So with this, it says find f of a plus h minus f of a all over h as long as h is not equal to 0. Don't worry about this too much. Pretty much all that is saying is you cannot have a 0 in your denominator, otherwise you will have an undefined value. So don't worry about that part too much. It's not critically crucial. So notice here I have an x and an x, right? This is saying find f of a plus h. So for that part right there, just that part of it, I can say that that is f of a plus h. So that should be 2 times a plus h. Instead of an x, I'm just going to put a plus h there. Minus 7, because I have to get the rest of the function. Okay, that is that part in green. And then I will keep going with this. I have to subtract f of a, so I will say minus f of a. So instead of x, I will put an a in its place. So 2 times a minus 7. And then it is all over h, so all over h. Notice this is the first part, right? That is that. And here is my second part. So that is just f of a. Cool. Then from here, we can just distribute like we know how to do once I decide what pen color I want to write with. So 2 times a and 2 times h. And then I will distribute this negative to both of those. So I have 2a plus 2h minus 7 minus 2a plus 7 all over h, which, hey-oh, if you notice, 2a minus 2a makes 0, negative 7 plus 7 makes 0, so I'm left with 2h over h. 2h over h. H divided by h makes 1, so this whole thing is just equal to 2. Hey-oh. Hopefully this section is easy enough for you guys. If you guys have any questions, you may ask your teacher, you may come ask me, ask anybody for help. Watch this video again, slow it down because I talk fast, I'm a crazy person. I hope you guys have a good whatever you're in, morning, night, afternoon, before school, after school, I don't know. Bye-bye!